As I start to, the last time I played, I didn't use the snake mechanism, but to tell you the truth, I was so uninformed that my decisions were probably not effective enough to be able to make any kind of determination as to what the most important things to buy are. One of the things to look at that's really vital from my point of view, first of all, I had been told, hey, if somebody was talking about, hey, these are really powerful, and you should probably try to get them. And yes, they do produce some nice early money, and very early money is very important. There's no question about that in most XX games. But how about in this one? What's interesting about this one is that you're sitting on your initial portfolio for a while. Uh, the one exception to that is if the VH is brought into play early, but I don't think that's a viable solution. I mean, I don't think somebody can bring it in real early, and basically, the money that you reserve to do so at any early point is wasted money in the early money. So you're not gonna be making your edge with this. Bringing that thing into play is simply not a good strategy as far as I can tell at this point. So then what that brings is, well, maybe these aren't all that valuable after all. Yeah, they do bring in better money the first couple operating rounds, and kind of the next couple they kind of catch up. But then you don't have much to invest in. Until the three trains come out, there's really no option to invest, and these things are bringing in such good money. Quite honestly, very good money that it is exceedingly difficult to make an argument that I think that these are terribly valuable, and I may actually shy away from them a little bit. Then the question comes with the minor companies. What do you want to look at with them? Well, one of the things that I learned is paying 120 for one of these seems like a great deal. You save more money, you have some excess cash, that maybe you can reinvest. Except there's nowhere to reinvest for the first for the first couple stock rounds. That's the big deal here. That's what changes. And in particular, if you start one of these with 120, it has enough money for a choo-choo, and that's it. Granted, it's going to be getting little bits of money trickling in, and if you look at most of these, they don't have a whole hell of a lot of money they have to spend. This guy's got to spend 40 if he wants to hook that up, but he could go this way first, and he's connected with this railway, so maybe that's what he desires to do. We look at the others, and there are no real terrain costs there, but there is the desire to buy another choo-choo. Now, another 120 choo-choo, you could say, I don't know, do you really want two 1Gs? Yeah, you do. You certainly do. First of all, you double the amount of cash that you're inflowing right into the corporation, and your track lays are sufficient. Well, here's where it gets iffy. Because if you run your track correctly with these, this guy, for example, can run all through this, right? Ooh, he's got a 40 bucker there that he's going to probably want to put together. Although he could run immediately. No. Yeah, you want to build that track. Some of the others have a little ways to go, and if they don't build, if they build a second route, it's not going to make that much more money than just extending your current route, because you don't get any cash for this. You only get cash for the things you actually are hitting, and you're only allowed to lay one track per turn. So the 1Gs can actually make almost as much cash in your pocket, but the corporation is doubling the money that it's pulling in, which is a big deal if you're sitting on one of the 20s, I think. In addition, you might be capable of pushing your way up to a 2G, which does actually increase your value. You're hitting, let's say you're hitting a 20 buck space to begin with, and another 20 buck space. So you do get to push your money up just about as much by going with one one train and upgrading it. And again, you kind of want the extra cash for that, but how much, I don't know. There's something really nice about that 120 basis. With these guys, it's a similar type of analysis. You look at the ones with the one, and you're like, well, it's great to be in Budapest, but this guy can hook up to it quickly enough, a few extra bucks. Except he doesn't really have a few extra bucks, or he doesn't have many extra bucks. He's at 120, his train is 80. This thing can also buy a second train very easily. Second train, why is that important? Well, it's not while you're here, but it is as soon as you hit, as soon as the 3 trains come out. Now, granted, once the 3 trains come out, the game changes in a lot of ways. But it's kind of funky. By the way, look at the cost of these things. 120 to get a share that may not, it's linked to one of these, it's one of the shares that somebody sets the price on. It may not be worth 120. So that early money that you're looking at, well, that's money I can reinvest or whatever, when you don't have an opportunity to really reinvest as much as you do in most games, also is early money that is just making up for the big 120 buck cost that you paid on it. You might be losing stock value by whatever you pick up. One of the analysis you want to do is also what can you buy exactly, because again, you're not going to get many reinvestment opportunities. And for this, we look at the starting capital. Now in 6 players, it's only 460 buckers. 460 bucks is interesting. It's only 3 sets of 120, right? Because a 4th set of 120 puts you just a little over that. So, and there's no bidding or anything like that, so you're not getting anything weird there. So what you probably want to do is you have 360 that you can devote to things with fixed prices. And then you have another 100 bucks. Well, you can't buy anything for 100, but you can buy something for 200. And that's important because if you've got 240 and 200, that puts you to 440, which gets you real close to this. So buying one of these, now obviously there's 4 players, only 4 players can buy these. Buying one of these at 200 kind of uses up your money to the best advantage, puts more cash into these, and gets you in a good position. So I think 4 of the players are going to be aiming at these suckers and trying to buy them at the 200 bucks. My evidence so far has been that that's a good move. Now let's look at which one we want to optimize as the best choice. Well, these two have an obvious advantage with that extra flow of cash going into the company. That's very, very attractive. Unfortunately, their best track is generally away from the corporation, the little regional corporation that they're going to eventually have. That's somewhat disconcerting. On the other side of things, we have these guys. Well, I'm not thrilled with this one, to tell you the truth. You certainly don't want to run this. A 2G wouldn't get you any any bonuses of these. But running something like this gets you decent money, but it costs a good deal to put together. I'm not sure which one I like the best. And then this one here has 2 directions that are both appealing. But again, this is an expensive direction. Now maybe you can split the bonus expense of this between the 2 of them. Of course, running through Prague helps him in terms of connecting up the coal company. Not that big a deal, but also kind of screws up the even flow of one company going through. However you want to look at that. So I don't know what I want to look at here, but I'm going to make some decisions using die rolls. It's not that big a deal. I'll come back after all of them because there's no bidding or anything like that to look into. No real thoughts of that. I'm just giving you some of the initial thoughts of what is going into where I'm going to sit. I think I'll be using a 10-sided die with 1 through 4. Do I really feel like this is fair? This is a really impressive route, to tell you the truth. Or this, depending on what you end up with. Because if you end up with the 2, you might be able to get a synergy between the 2 companies. I actually, in the game that I played, I don't know if he had the 2 in the past. He definitely had the, he ended up with the purple line and the BH and had them both running a huge coal run, when neither one's really associated with a coal company that this guy had built for them. I don't want to do that again if I can help it. I want to lay the track for my own companies this time. So I'm beginning to get a better view of what the synergies between the miners is. The first decision, the first player, this is not the guy with the priority, it's the guy who would normally be going last, but we're doing the reverse snake here, has put a $200 bid, remember my argument for why that's a good idea, into this company. And it's not a bad one. I like this one. It's got that $60 bonus. Basically what I did was 1 through 4 it would be one of these. 5 it'll be something else. Something else, well, I reduced the odds of getting one of these mountains to begin with. So now this $200, I have to spend 120 of it right off the bat. That's what this is a reminder of. And buy a 1G train. These are special. You can buy them right now, and you must buy them right now to get your company off the bat. The dice. The coal mining company's got the favoritism. 4 of the players, the first 4 players have grabbed one up each. And again, at that $200, just because your starting cash more or less requires it. There's nothing funky that you have here. The prices may be different depending on what you're playing with. So if you're playing in the 560 range, you may have very different decision making here. But that $200 just makes so much sense here because now I have 260, which is enough to buy 2 more things. Ignoring that. That is just not worth thinking about. Let's analyze the remaining choices. First of all, this. It is not in a great location. I can set up a 2 train running here, but it's going to cost me $40 to blast through that. Eventually, it's kind of nice. Once the 3 trains come out, it becomes an interesting location in general, because presumably this guy will have built up to me. However, it looks a little out of things. This one is also interesting. This is another $240 rail. Initially, a cheaper cost across to the river, or across the Linz, and then it'll open up to Pressburg. You got 2 trains running, and you're guaranteed to be part of the bigger part of Vienna, which is probably advantageous too. As you can see, you come out more directions. Other options. 2 is kind of nice. It runs you right up into Buda. It doesn't start out with a lot of money though. Those $120 companies, I'm a little hesitant about them, at the very least. The one coming out of Vienna, which is up here, it's a $240 company, but you're going to be running a 2 train to a 10 spot. Now, Vienna is more valuable than any other place. But again, why would I choose this when I could have this one? Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe because I want this as well, and I want them both running, and I want a greater percentage of my company. But, you know, I can do the same here, right? And finally, well, let's take a look at this. It's again 120. It's not bad. It's the cheapest of the hookups and gets you into the rich territory where G trains are available. That's appealing. They're more expensive than normal trains, but very quickly you can make some good money off of that and get cash into your company treasury. So that's kind of appealing too. The final one is Innsbruck. I see this as almost a loser company, and one that I'm not sure. Maybe I'd rather be getting the 25 bucks each. I mean, eventually it might be cool. You don't want to go down here, which means you're going to be running your first run up there. That's fine. But if you're running two trains, you're probably running this, or if you want to spend the extra money, that. You don't have any opportunities for the coal trains and the G's, and it really looks like the worst of the choices by far. Of course, I also still have all of these available. Make our decisions. Of particular importance, both of these guys get fairly close calls, so if I get the one, I probably will be able to get the two as well if I want it, which is definitely appealing. So this guy bought the Budapest company, and then he bought both of these, which was sort of the prime remaining one in my view. So he came back, bought the second Budapest. He wants control of that. That's kind of a shame for the guy who has the green. He would have liked to have played in one of those two. Again, that's the cost of the double choices, which puts him in kind of a painful position. That's beginning to make the BH look appealing to me. Another possible appeal is the Graz line. I could maybe hook up one hell of in either case, I could hook up one hell of a nice run. I'm going to think about whether I can float this sucker. So I have $260. I would need 5. I cannot. It would cost me at least $300 because you have to have 5 shares. I didn't mention operating. In general, it's 5 shares. There are some exceptions, which is, this was back when I should have been doing the rules. These guys, when they turn into the state railroads, those state railroads are operating. You're turning operating stuff into other stuff. But these suckers don't necessarily. You got to get the 50% out to make that regional railroad, and if you crash this thing before the regional, before the 50%, before you can get 50% out, you end up just sitting on nothing. And this is still like you're running. You have a non-operable railroad that you have resources with. Trains, money, whatever. It doesn't need to buy trains until it's operating. But yeah, that's kind of a danger. So you got to be careful about that, especially if you're forced into it when the shares aren't all out. You might end up in a problematic situation. The only problematic situation that can happen with the state railroads is if no one bought the one location for them. Wheel player 3 over here was 1, 2, 3, was unwilling to spring on this, which would have been an interesting choice. Another option would have been to go for the Vienna main railroad, but instead he decided on getting himself one of these mountain railways. The danger here is, if the other mountain railways go, and they could very easily, who wants these? I don't know, maybe. But if the other mountain railways go, Well, these two pass, and then I'll get a chance anyway. Because these guys have somehow wasted all their money. Because remember, 360 out of 460 leaves you $100, not enough to buy anything. Yeah. The particulars of the cash are weird. And do you want to invest in something when you don't know what the hell's going to happen? No. You know, you do not want to buy random shares of shit at all. And what did I have here? I had 120, 220, 245, 250, 260. Yeah, I wouldn't have had enough. I wouldn't have enough to float this. Maybe I could have gotten somebody like one of these, like these guys, maybe, and convinced them in to buy the red. I don't tend to generally make such deals. Here's why. If I do that, I could get shafted. But on the other hand, those guys are really at an advantage to be able to buy shares of something that can be run. Except they're running their own two little companies. And if I can screw one of my competition completely out by leaving them high and dry with shares that aren't going to do anything for a long time, whew, I mean, you know, which way do I want to go? He only needed to get one share sold though, right? Because 240, you could start it at $60 and throw them out there. So I don't know. You know, it's just a. Do you trust someone not to cut your balls off on the first turn of the game and just knock you out of the game? Generally, when I play solo, I do not. Generally, when I play opposed, I do not. I do see people cut deals on the first turn of the game. I. If somebody asks me, I try to leave them a non-committal message so that, like, you know, in this particular game though, because of these fixed values, it might be appropriate for these guys to cut deals. It might be in their best interests to cut deals, even if they're not knocking up instead of knocking a player out. The next two coal railways made the same choice: go for a mountain railway. Then we get up here, and he finally decided to take the Vienna space. He's really not poised to use it over here. It's a shame. Any kind of synergy would have been better with one of these guys, but such is. Neither of these can go. And they have nothing of value they can buy, right? They can't set a share value at something. They could buy any of these at 100 if they want to share, but those shares aren't going to be making money for a long time. So, you know, wait and see which one runs before you make that choice, I guess. They could not invest in this. It's not big enough. They are allowed to invest in these, but they don't have enough cash. Again, it's 120 they need to do. So we get back around to him. He's got enough cash to buy one more thing. Now, given his last decision, he may be interested in picking up another one of these. It's a pretty good buy. On the other hand, hey, I'm getting another chance at this. So I'm going to put that as a 50-50. And I'm not quite sure how. Everything's sold out. That puts priority over here. Last time I played, what happened? People did not put 120 into the, or 240 or $200 into these. I didn't make that calculation. I was looking at, hey, what kind of value do you have left? And I think what happened was we had people sitting on these $100 splotches for buying a 240 plus a 120 who couldn't do anything. And what I'm not getting is why, because I had a couple of these go for only 120. A couple people decided just to put the minimum down on them. And I do not know why, but I ended up in a position where I think the 3 company could not be sold. And actually, well, one thing that happened was one of these 240s couldn't be sold, which you can see why that would happen. If people scoop up the little things, that wouldn't happen. But also the Innsbruck one didn't get sold. Somebody may have held money thinking that that was too shitty. I made the decision here. In fact, I bought it before buying a mountain railway for the simple fact that I think running a company, even a shitty company, is better than getting 25 bucks a turn that you can't quickly reinvest to anything valuable. There may be strategies in the game, though, that I'm missing. I'm sure there are. There may be ones that I'm missing, and here's what I'm speculating about in particular, where you convert something, you can't convert these, but you convert a coal company quicker than I did with any of mine in my game. In my game, the ones that had 200 bucks on them or whatever, may not have even been a 200, ended up, yeah, it was, ended up, I think, converting over to the regionals more quickly than the ones that only had a total of 120 on them. So this is my first pass. He obviously does not have enough cash to do anything, and neither does anyone else. So we're going to just float around. There are people with 100 bucks. They could, again, buy one of these, but why buy one at random? And here's the thing. As long as those guys are all at 100, this is a better deal than it was when there were a couple at 60, because I am going to get minimum 25 bucks back and the exchange on one of these that's at 100. Almost guaranteed, unless I'm really sleeping for the, unless that player's asleep. Okay, that's going to push us into the first operating round. First thing that happens is we grab 4 of these and hand them out to the people. And I could put them on the company, but I don't tend to do that. Hand them out to the people who have the mountain railways. Next, we go over to each of these rails. And the first one is the 1. We put that down just to show that it's running, I guess. Find the player who's playing. And he gets to lay some track. All right. It's already got a train. It's pretty cool, actually. We're going to go up here. Try to maximize our route as much as possible. And we get to run. It's a 1 train. It runs for 20 bucks. 10 bucks goes in the company treasury. And then I split that 20 bucks. 10 to me, 10 to the company. I have 100 bucks. I'm allowed to own 2 trains. There's no restriction. Well, it needs to be a coal train. And the problem is I can't run a normal train out of here. So since the coal train is 120 bucks, I can't start another train right away. And I'm not sure that I want to. So that's player 1. And we're going to see similar stuff coming from the other coal companies. Company 2, shot down this way. They're only able to make 10 bucks off their run, plus whatever goes in the company. That ends up split 5-5. Company 3, and I learned a nasty lesson last game. This is a little more appealing. There's a 30 buck thing there. I can make a 40 run real quick. There's more tasty stuff going this way. But I ended up completely ignoring this. Now, I have enough money right now that I will be able to get to 2 trains at some point. Or maybe get a bigger train. This is not unappealing. There's some yummy things on the way down there. And I'd like to build up the company, the local, the regional corporation that is associated there and not get in the shitty position that I was in, where there was a wonderful run up here. Actually, it ran all the way through Budapest, not all the way there, but through all this. It was just really, really rich. Huge coal run. This guy was part of it, made good money early on, but I don't think it was wise. So I think instead, I want to hit the doinkers because I'm a coal company. I get to make a 20 run right off the bat instead of that 10 run. Now, granted, it isn't so great soon afterwards. And I may not want to run through here. I may want to run this way, depending on how long I'm going to have a 1G, right? That's something we got to think about. And what do we got here? So we've got $20 goes in the company treasury, which is awfully sweet. That's one of the nice things. It produces more money in the company treasury, able to get me better trains more quickly. And then I'm running a 20 run, which means I get $10, not quite enough to buy a second train yet. And I'm not allowed to upgrade until the 3s come up. And I get $10 in my own pocket. The fourth one here is, screw it. This is just too rich, especially since I have this and think that maybe I can do something with it. But yeah, this is, you can't deny this. Actually, I won't be able to do anything with it easily. If I want to get a coal run, it'll have to, it can help build track, but it'll have to go, you know, someplace like here or something, until I get a 2G. A 2G would allow me to run through there. Mnemonic for the order of these, they go in this order. So, company 1 is up here. And that'll be running out of Vienna. I can buy a 2. That's all I'm allowed to buy. And, oh, nobody could have bought a 1G anyway. The 2s aren't out yet. I could actually buy multiple 2s. But I don't have a use for that. And I don't know how long it's going to take for me to do so. So, we are going to not run. This is just going to sit there. There's no stock valuation on this. And just buy ourselves a single 2 train for $80. But that has just changed the phase. 2025. And we should see something similar with all the other companies. So I get to lay some track. What do I want to lay? That's an interesting question. Yeah, I really don't like what's going on here. Do I want to just set up track so that the 2 train can run 2 companies? I doubt it. I am going to go, I'll make a decision. I could just be a total dick. But here's the problem with that. This track doesn't upgrade to anything. And what does that mean in terms of the eventual situation? Well, it could get me up here with a big call run. I can get up. I don't know. You know, I mean, until I get this track capability to build into here, none of it really makes a damn bit of difference. I'm going to go with this because I feel dickish, but I may be splitting this company that I've got 20% of. I may be doing a lot of damage to it. Probably not, because there's going to be a way up into here and whatnot. But, and in fact, yeah, no, there's no bright side to this particularly, but it may not hurt much. This is going to change the nature of the map tremendously, though. The fact that this isn't just hooking up. Yeah, this is nothing like my last game in so many ways. So, what did we have? Well, down here, his intention to build that call run means he wants to go this way, but this is his most valuable space he can connect to. So he'll be connecting to this next to make sure he gets a quick run, and then a couple more track lays to get a little bit more money. Similar thing here. Hey, I'll connect up to this, make sure I get my first run, make some money, but then eventually start heading up this way. More complicated. These guys are working together, so what did I do? I screw them up. This can be placed either way, and it costs to place it. I don't necessarily have to do that, but I don't have a train to begin with. So I'm paying to place this. It's going to make me more money. And then, the other option would be to shoot straight up here, which makes me money, but gosh, I don't know. I'm torn between the two. I think actually I don't want the Budapest piece placed yet. I want to think about that a little bit more. I think I do want to connect this up and make the maximal money. I'll probably be placing Budapest very soon with one of these two companies. This guy doesn't have a lot of money, but he has enough to hook both of those up. And it took me, I kind of screwed up and forgot to move trains onto everything. But now everybody's bought a single train. Nobody has a use for two right away. Is there anywhere that would have? I don't believe so. I don't believe anybody could have. Any of the normal companies. You might want to buy more trains. That's like, the 1830 kind of, hey, do you want to hoard up on the two trains? I don't know. There's only one left. But a 3 train is very appealing to almost all of these players. So for example here, I want a 1, 2, 3 to get in, to Vienna rather than just another deuce. Are there companies the companies that do want a second train are the ones that are low on money. People like this who aren't going to be able to afford a 3 for a while, but they don't have enough to buy that second 2. Anyway, what ends up happening is after everybody has gone, one of these trains gets exported because the first 2 has been sold for the game. And since it would be possible you could trigger the 3s right away going into this stock round. They could already be in place and people could be converting over their coal mining companies. I think that's a horrible idea. The only real question is there someone who goes late in the turn? Which would be this guy, for example, who really wants a second 2 train. And the answer is no. He wants a 3. 1, he's probably going to be hitting Pressburg. 2, 3 into Budapest. In fact, he's definitely going to be hitting Pressburg. And here, he's got his 2. So, he doesn't have the opportunity here. You can't sell trains between companies yet until the 3s come out. So there's really no flexibility. That extra train doesn't look really appealing to anybody. Purple goes second. They might not get a chance at the second 2 train, but again, I've already discussed what's going on with there. Orange actually is kind of pissed, but they don't really want that second 2. Somebody's going to probably be forced to take that second 2 train anyway, but nobody really desires it right now. The 3 train is $180 though. That's a much larger pile of cash. Remember though, we're going to be putting half our money into these companies, so they're going to be producing some cash pretty soon. that put us here. We jump over these. I like counting down from operating rounds, and doing it this way is kind of weird to me. But and then we go over here. By the way, on the other end of this is a bomb. I don't know what the hell that bomb's for, but what I use it for is if there's a major phase change that has to be taken care of during the operating round, I mark that with the bomb. And then when you hit the end of the game, you might be replenishing the bank. I don't have all my poker chips from this set in there. Notably, I have about $3,000, a little over $3,000 in chips that can be infused into the game if it's close to breaking. And I could even go and get me another whole set of chips. I bought 2 of these because, and that was important for 18 OE, if nothing else. Okay, that is the end of 1. Now, what about the stock round? Nothing's changed. Basically, nobody's got any real cash. No big surprise. The second stock round in an 18xx game is almost always boring. But even if we had cash, there's not much worth buying. The packet would be gone whether or not anybody did anything with it. And the only thing really available that you can turn into anything is this. That's going to take you $300 to do. We're not going to see $300 in any single person's hands for a while. It takes at least 120 to even just buy the presidency, and you better get a whole bunch of people who want that company to be in play for that to work. So I don't think we're going to see much happening. I think that's it for now, probably for tonight. Skip through the stock round, nothing really happened there. Onto the operating round, paid out the bonuses to people. And I look at this and I say, this company is going to make another 10, 20 bucks into its treasury. That's enough money to buy another train. I got to make my decision at this point. Do I want to run to Prague, which I probably can't control, or do I want to bust through here and, increase the size of my run? Because I can't control the Prague situation, and I don't have to go to Prague. I could try to run around here, but again, it's going to take, next turn I could get to Prague. I can't get to here by next turn, so I can't be making a second train run there. So I think instead I'm going to devote that money to blasting through those mountains. There probably will be a 1G available when I'm ready to go up to 2 trains. Maybe not, whatever. In that case, maybe I never actually breach out through this way. Some interesting track light choices too. I want to go to Prague, but do I want to go up this way and connect up and get these 2 extra cities, towns, whatever? Or do I want to run down here and then back up this way? There's more room for eventual growth in this direction. Which, I go up this way and I am stuck to just adding 2. I'll be able to add 1 anyway. So I think I'm going to cut down this way. Not that way. This way. Now this kind of screws him up, because until the greens come, he's not going to be able to get in there. And it's a dicky move, but I'm a dicky person. The spot of it for the 1 is that is this, and I want to call it the Bavarian because it's blue and starts with a B, but no, it's Bohemian. This regional railway starts here, so I'm already hooked up to a coal mine with mine. That's not happening with this multiple sclerosis line here, whatever it is. Maastricht, Schlesch, I don't know. Schleswig probably, but no, that's nowhere near there. Yeah, I don't, Silesian maybe? Are we anywhere near there? I don't know. I don't know the, well, there's Maastricht, which is getting us probably towards Silesia. This is the Silesian border here. Okay. So that's probably what it is. That's not hooked up yet. Now that will be hooked up to Vienna, but that doesn't create a call company. So interesting things developing. And again, this is a totally different starting board from how my last game worked. And I feel like that's going to happen a lot in this game. Because there are a lot of different things that can happen in the choices of your privates, or whatever you want to call it, the miners. I'm going to call them, but that's not, they're different kinds of companies in this game. They're not all clumped under the term miner, but they feel like miners. The differences in how they can be arranged and who can be sitting on them, and the, emotional state of the player and their own strategies and whatnot, affects everything so heavily that I don't think there's a book for this game. In 1830, there's sort of, at least for me, a book in terms of the B&O goes a certain way. Oh, look, there's a turkey. I don't know if you can see him. He's kind of waddling behind that tree. It's my white one. But yeah, it ends up being much more flexible in terms of what you see. It's not like, okay, if the B&O is almost certainly going to start on the first turn, and it's going to have these, it's going to want this track in 6 players. If the C&O starts, this is what it wants to do. If the B&M starts, this is what it wants to do early in the game. Where the main differentiation in an 1830 game really is, what companies do people start? There they are. Number 3, I don't see a real downside to building some track coming out this way. I currently have, except that it, decreases the potential of this run, but I have this running out, and I've got enough cash, that's 100 under there, to buy myself another one of these 1Gs. And I think I'll make a little bit more money by doing this. The negative, of course, is, well, that's cash that could go in the corporate treasury. I'm not building the track for the corporation, etc. But since I'm making 50-50 on it, I might as well improve my ratio as much as possible and not make the decision to build the corporation until it's time. Now, honestly, I can build as much track for the corporation with the private as I can otherwise, but I also have the advantage of being able to build track the corporation's not immediately hooked up to. Less clearly beneficial for this company, I did the same thing because I really kind of want to develop the corporate track. The reason it's less beneficial is I had this desire, to hook up to the 2, but I'm not sure that's going to happen. I just don't know, and that's a long way off. If I can kind of hook up into whatever the 3 is doing, I get to take advantage of basically, not just my own track, but someone else's as well. So that's pretty sweet. And here we're somewhere interesting. Jeez. I feel like an idiot for building that track, but just trying to be a dick for some reason. I end up paying to give Vienna. That gets me a good payout, 20 bucks each, comparatively good at this point. The actual runs become quite heavy in this game because those coal trains, at least in the game that I played, this one may turn out totally different, but those coal trains can become quite impressive, and they're not using the same cities as your regular trains, so basically each company can have one of each and run a rich coal train and a rich regular train that are both really, really impressive. But here, my thought is, well, okay, I can run a 2 train here and another 2 train here, if need be. Otherwise, I can curve up and grab Pressburg, or maybe curve over and grab Budapest. But if I get to Budapest, I could just run my 2 train, or no, I need a 3 train for that. So yeah, so I may ignore this little doinker and just be using it for runs. I think I'm gonna spring for that other cheap train. I think that's worth the money at this point. Of course, that means someone can buy a bonus 3 train, the first 3 train, but I don't really need it. If I can't get into Pressburg, I can almost certainly get into Budapest. We'll see what happens there. What sucks about these little $120 ones is I don't have the cash after my run to buy that 3 train. I would love to. I really would. But they're just so cash poor. I got 55 bucks on it. I could be running, two runs out of here very easily. It's just not going to happen, and I cheated. I played the wrong tile. I played a green tile when it should have been this tile, which means I did not want to buy that 2 train. Whoops. Okay, and I gotta drop my income by $1. That should have still been 50. I don't know why I put it at 40. I think I read this as 30 for some reason. So I actually I get more money, but I gotta reverse that train purchase. Well, I want to. This is the thing. The same reasons that I wanted to get here are still kind of applicable. I can hit here with the 2 train, and I can hit there with another 2 train, assuming someone buys the 3 train. But it is a choice this time, so odds I go for that train. All right, I am buying that train. May have ended up something of a mistake. No, it's not. That train's going to get exported no matter what. So even if nobody buys it, I have 2 trains, which is something the one company was unable to do, I think. We'll see. It's making an initial run for 20 and 20. Let's see if he's got enough for that train. I don't think so. He's got 125, 135, 140 bucks in his company. It's 180 for the train. I could trade in for that 140 and get a 3 train on there. Is that worthwhile? It's basically pitching away my nice 2 train for something I'm not going to be able to get. I can wait on that decision. I don't think that's going to be a big problem to do so. And this is the thing. I don't think any of the ones are able to afford that 180. And the question then becomes, well, can they afford, can they buy the 140? So for example, this guy could run between these 3 stations with the 140 train, but is it that much better? It lasts longer, but maybe I would prefer to be running 2 trains out of my 1 station. I know the level of detail that I'm going to feels kind of inane at this point in the game, especially to anybody who's played it and kind of understands it. To me, I want to make sure that I'm capturing whatever is really important, and it's kind of hard for me to absolutely see that right now, because I know some of the impacts have just kind of blown me away. Anyway, we got this guy heading down here with a little doinker. Some thoughts of eventually maybe getting that 2G into place. This kind of screws up the two companies pass through there, which was probably overly optimistic. There are tracks I could have laid here which would have made that possible and would have meant that the 4 company would end up screwing over the 2 company, which is why I have to do the dicky move of, basically with double doinkers, that's the way it goes. Whoever controls the entrance into the hex owns what that route is going to look like from then on. What we're seeing is a route, though, or track that's not going to be as doinker full as the game that I played. Which is to say, there's like no way I'm going to hit this doinker and this doinker without hitting this city. It's just, and that is the kind of thing that I was not setting up last time. Last time I had efforts, to create loops that went through everything, and that increased the value of the G trains tremendously. Over here, we got a problem for him. Where he'd really like to go is Linz, and he'd like a wide turn. The track limitations are already playing out. There are no more wide turn yellows left in the game. And they'll be recycled as the green train, after the 3 train comes up and people start upgrading to green. But right now, I can't just go into here. And that's kind of problematic as well, because I don't really want to go straight into these doinkers with this company either. I think I'm going to... Do I want a sharp hook? See, I can't run from Vienna to Vienna either, which would be potentially appealing. I could run from Vienna to Budapest, and I have the race on this. But that's a wide. Again, I can't get that. So, I think what I'm going to lay is this. It doesn't cost me any money. I run for 60. Hey, we got the biggest run so far. And then I got to think about possible train upgrades. I'm not going to be able to use it right away, though. But a new train I could definitely use. I don't think I'm going to have that kind of money. We're still in the yellow phase. There was just one operating round. We kick all the way up to here. Phase change happens. The first 3 train is discarded. Let's make sure we know everything that happens in it. Obviously, we go into the greens there. Probably tells me here somehow. No. If it does, it tells me in pictures I can't understand. So what do we got? Green tiles, 2G trains become available. Yeah. Coal railways can be exchanged, which is to say that during the stock round, somebody can turn this into one of the regionals. Mountain railways can be exchanged for share certificates. There are 2 operating rounds, and we can start moving trains around, which makes a big difference. Because something like this, where somebody owns a couple of different companies, can shift a train for good use. How much value there is right now, I don't know. Every company's got to have a train. You don't want to miss a run particularly, so stripping the only train off a company seems unwise. There's the possibility of taking a coal train from someone if you're hooked up for it. But right now, nobody's hooked up for it. And in fact, the 2 who was close to the coal company shunted away. They would have loved to go this way, planning on getting into Budapest, but this might be my better route in. Yeah. That puts us to a stock round again, and I still don't think there's anything we can do. This is the point in the game where, in most XX games, somebody's got enough money to buy another share of something. It's probably too early to start another company. Unless it's collaborative again. I mean, it would be possible for people to start that red company collaboratively. But that company is beginning to look pretty damn iffy right now, isn't it? Of course, yeah, it's still $10 on its home city, which sucks. And the track around it is not appealing. There's just nothing appealing about that company to me. It becomes so. Certainly in the game I played, it was very, very powerful. It was one of the 2 most powerful companies in the game, both owned by the same player. And you would think that player ran away with the game, but they didn't. They won, but it was a close run between them and someone who basically was an investor the entire game. I mean, you can't be completely an investor because you start off with these minor companies, but what they got out of it was, I think they ended up with this, and they had like 30% of it, and we're holding it at that. It was a valuable company, not as valuable as the two that were, as the red and the purple, which were held together. And the reason those were so powerful is they were both taking advantage of all this, all the coal track that had been built by the Fore Company. And I mean, the two really kind of worked in conjunction with the Fore to build it, and it helped both of them. But there was no like, oh, the Fore is going to try to hook up to something else type of situation. And in the long run, this SB here, I don't even want to try, ended up, having to start here and a much weaker variant of the big coal run that the other two companies were able to get. Dots eventually shut both of those out, and they had to find other routes, but they were still the top performers. They were both had 2 trains is the main reason. I've already kind of discussed why nobody's going out of their way to start that thing. Now, if anybody has enough money, they would, but nobody does. So, but the other opportunity is to convert not all the miners, but the coal companies into their regional companies. This is something you want to do eventually. You won't get any stock value if you don't, and you'll be forced into it anyhow. But as the trains come out. But you want to hold off, and here's why, in general. You're getting 50% of the money, 50% of the money that it makes goes into the company. That's a better split than you're going to ever get. That's the split you get if you don't ever pay, if you pay out every other turn, right? And your stock value is not going to move anyway. And you've invested to buy 50% of the company, which you need to float it, which, again, nobody has in hand anyway. So the game really flows in this very much, I'm just going to run my miners status for the beginning. And this is what I've been pointing out. But so we're just going to jump into the operating rounds again. Example of the one train's decision. And by the way, the two probably made an error going this way, but we'll talk of the coal mining companies. We'll talk about that in a bit. And maybe, I don't know. But I'm heading into here because now that 3s are out, I can build something, not like that, but like that. That doesn't force me to be running a 2 among crappy towns, and just keep adding $10, as I expand out into those doinkers. This is how these routes get really wealthy, and this can run just fine from here. I don't need to be in there. Of course, there might be some advantage for this guy coming down this way, conceivably. It's hard to tell. Just because he'll be supporting his own company. That's kind of the negative to it all. This is not going to really help the two. And it helped temporarily, a little bit of cash right away, but it's not going to help in the long term. And it perhaps helped the one company do something. Burden here for the two is that I only have one train, and the money to get that 2G train is really out of reach. The money to upgrade to it is a little closer, but that doesn't do me much. That allows me to pass through cities where cities become necessary to pass through. And that becomes necessary as you go further and further into the game. But here, hey, I'm running to here the same as he is. I'm helping him with that, and I'm just not producing, that much cash. Why do I have the same amount of money is the question. 20, 30, 40, 50. Yeah, that's a good question. I probably should have more. Like $5 more or something. I don't know. I'm not able to figure that out. Whether I screwed something up. I know I put the money in the wrong place and then undid that and whatever. For the 2, we just finally broke. Let me see if that was the case. 20, 30, 40. Yeah. For the 2, we finally broke the value that these mountain railways are producing. And for the 3, we're not over it yet, but we're pushing more and more cash into the company's hands, which is also a sweet situation because that'll make it easier for me to upgrade to a 2G at some point as we start running 2 trains. Pushing out as I can here. Again, the greens aren't bringing out the wide track that I want, which sucks, but whatever. I can always upgrade. And remember, upgrades get me the same $10 that drawing track does, but if I connect up to somebody else's track that they're also building, I get to double the effort, which is what happened over here. The other coal railways are sitting kind of far away from each other, so they can't get that kind of synergy the 1 and the 2 can. And I think the 1 and 2 want to take advantage of that with each other, whether or not they're controlled by the same player. So we're seeing them working together. For the first of the Sudbahn sub-companies, well, I was mistaken. The 3 train coming out wasn't good enough. I had to have this green track in play as well to begin to build track. It's going to be a while before that second 2 train does me any good whatsoever. So it may have been a mistake to buy it. It's cheaper than a 3. And if I want 2 trains, it makes sense to run both of these. But wow, I'm not sure if it was a good idea. And somebody like this could have easily bought that second 2 and used it to more advantage. But on the other hand, I am denying them the opportunity to do so. So there's some value to it. And I do get a cheaper train. But it's one that's going to die quicker. And I probably made a mistake by buying it. Smaller Sudbahn companies are only making $20 a share still. The same as the weaker of the coal company. Well, most of the coal companies. Except for the guy who got the jump here. And they're upgrading, but because it's the quicker way to get to money rather than trying to build to something and hoping it gets upgraded in the right direction. It probably will, but you can't guarantee anything when other players are able to dick you over. So getting this set up is better. Here I could make it down to there, but it would take me a couple turns to get the same payoff that I get by upgrading. For the Budapest line, the upgrade got me up to $30 for me, 30 for the company, so it's now doing better than the mountain railways. I'm $170. I've had somebody else be at this guy as well. Although he got there a little early, that's just short of being able to buy that first 3 train for an actual player. But at least I'm setting up track, that my other company can use. There's good stuff there. Now, this is going to happen no matter who owns the 2, right? But that synergy might end up developing in ways that might not be as appealing. So, for example, instead of playing this, I could have played this. That wouldn't. This one helps me hook into Vienna, so it's more appealing because I'd rather be making that run than anything else, even if it helps someone else, right? See the cash of this thing. Now, remember though, I say, oh wow, these sort of capital companies, the president's share of the future state company is making, in this case, $80, so I'm getting 40 into my pocket, which was enough to buy a second train. I'm going to be, running out of both sections and making more money, but I paid $240 for that. That's twice this. I have to break 50 to hit the break even with these companies. Some of these others, let's see. Well, this one was doing okay. And I think that the two Kaiser ones, the K and K, are going to, produce the best money. And there's a reason why the guy who got the double pick got both of them instead of both of these. They're just more attractive. And again, it has to do with your seating order and whatever. For whatever reason, we saw the call companies were highly valued by the players. And then let's get that kind of synergy around bonus cities being valuable without anybody being able to get the Südbahn bonus, which frankly, these two are probably almost as good as this one. I'm not quite sure why the Budapest one was chosen. It was kind of a dicky move against him. He thought he would be able to get at least this two company and be able to run that, or maybe the Budapest one and be able to connect his coal up to it. And it didn't work out that way. Somebody else decided, no, this is really valuable. And it is. It's in a nice location because unlike these, it's able to access the rich coal locations, which was definitely of a huge advantage in the game I played previously. It may not develop that way this time. It's an interesting opportunity here. Let's take a look at it. The two company has $110 on it. That's not the 170 that I need to run a 3 train, to buy a 3 train. But I've got another $30 here. Again, still not enough. But if I spend all my cash to buy, say, a 3, because in terms of track lays, I probably would rather keep a 2 and a 3 running. Although this is actually set up to run 2 3s, so maybe I'll buy the 2. That would give me $135 in there. I would only be running the single train. Would be maybe leaving the 3, let's say, which could run at 80, 100 next time, or 100 here, but that costs me money, so that's more dangerous. Which means I'd get 50 more in the treasury. So I would get 175, 180. I would have enough money to buy a second train. To me, that means I think I want to buy one of these trains. I don't see anything that the 2 really needs cash for at this point. So I am going to throw all my money in. It'll make money on the next train, to get myself a 2 train off of that one. That means this isn't going to make as much money as I had hoped next time, but that's okay. I could develop this track instead. I can run a pair of 3s, 1, 2, up into Budapest maybe, or down this way is even more attractive. And I've got, something good happening there. And remember, this all falls into the same corporation, so that's not a big deal. What is perhaps a big deal is that I have 2 trains on here. When the 4 comes out, those will be destroyed. That puts it at risk of, maybe not having a train or whatever, but I can always flow my money into there. I just lose an operating round off of that if that's the case. It also means I can't upgrade to a 4 train. I can only upgrade the immediately preceding train. And those trade-ins, you don't have to have a space. So if I have a pair of 3s in here, I can trade a 3 in because it's turning into the 4. It doesn't actually, I don't actually have a full portfolio as I'm making the trade, which is really, again, there's this ultimate capability in this game for trying to move the trains along. And that's where so much of the game ends up being. And that's where it kind of blew my mind. Between that and the capabilities of creating 2 different types of really potent runs for any given corporation. That gets us to the end of the first operating round for this time. And we'll do another one. The 1 train, they're running the same track as before. Added a little bit to it, great. Not a whole lot of money in here. I'm not seeing much expansion capability. I've got a 1G train, $150, hey, next time maybe I can upgrade to a 2G, but I don't know how much that's really helping me. On the other hand, I could, and this is, I'm at the end of my operations for this operating round. I probably have enough money, and if not, I have some of these I can change in to start that corporation. Why would I want to do that? Because, I'll be starting it at 50%. I'll still be getting half the money on payouts. I'll be getting stock value, great, but that, it's my corporation. It doesn't really matter. My stock value in my corporation is something that matters at the end of the game, but I probably am not going to be dumping many shares of it in the course of my play. Well, what it matters is that I get a whole horde more money into the operations. I've only put up 20% of the money. The other $800 gets flooded in right away for me to use, for me to manipulate the trains, for me to try to push other people into decisions that maybe they don't want to make while I'm falling, instead of me falling behind. So that's an appealing concept. Most XX games, this one has a certificate limit 11. Nowhere near that. 3 here. I'm just looking at that same situation. But I was looking for it because I wanted to find the share limit, which unfortunately is not defined in the purchase of shares, where I would have expected it from the last thing I read, or else I would expect a share limit to be separate. It is actually embedded in the certificate limit, which is fairly common. Which is you're only allowed to have 60% of a company, but if you manage to get more, and the only way you manage to get more in this is through trade-ins, you're allowed to hold that more. So that's an interesting facet. So these extra things could be turned into certificates. Now remember, it doesn't do me any good to have stuff in the bank pool. Well, there is no bank pool, in the bank, right? The company doesn't own those shares. They don't pay out to the company. So it might behoove me to turn these shares in from my own company, especially since it'll get running faster and be worth more, and other people will have desires to pick them up. The point where the 1 and the 2 are no longer working together. Because the 1 wants to go out here. The 2 has no need. This is my run, is to here. There's nothing else I can do. I can't start from here so that I can run back there. Now, once I become a corporation, I can. I could be running out of here, and then through all this yummy stuff. So again, maybe the fact that I'm limited, I only have $115, means I too want to expand what I've got. What I've got right now, though, is that I can expand this this city and get a little bit more cash right now from it. It started out with the 2 trains. First of all, the 2 coal companies that did, they probably want to up there. They probably want to last a little longer. The reason is I'm making decent money, but more importantly, I'm getting $40 in the company treasury additional with each run because I'm hitting them twice, and that means that I'm accumulating cash quickly enough to keep expanding my trains. So I'm not looking at them necessarily to convert as easily. And this is actually what I saw last game was these guys converted a little earlier, but these guys got hosed on the right-hand side of the map because they didn't develop their corporate train routes as well. And that's something that's a threat to worry about. Of course, the less you have it developed, the less you actually want, to start that company. the more it's a pain to do so. So where I can develop it, it's definitely seems to be a worthwhile thing to do. The question is which direction, whether I want to go towards Budapest with this or up here where I have to pay some money, but it looks more appealing. Well, it looks more appealing right away to making money, but maybe less appealing for what the corporation is going to end up with, right? Might end up with a nice coal train, but that's not really the goal. Not the only goal. You want to have two trains that are good, and the easiest way to do that is to get yourself a good coal train on a good coal train route and a good regular train running through the meat of the money making places. Now, whatever it is, something that starts out here is almost assured not to get a really good route down here, especially if it's a regional that don't have a lot of dots. And given that the state railways all start in here and the regionals start out at the edges of the board, it's almost guaranteed that it's the state railroads that are going to have the really best routes in the center. We saw this one do so in the game that I didn't video. I saw it do so. You didn't. And it's got some nice advantages in terms of being able to jump right into the center of things. And that's what's good about that route. The problem is it doesn't make early money, and early money is important in any XX game, even this one. Less in this one, but still important. I did things wrong. This guy just exchanged for a 3 train with a train he's never used. It would have been cheaper to buy the 3 train, right? I only get half the money back as a discount, and I'm going to be hooked up and able to run up here. Screw it, I want the 3 train. It lasts longer. It seems like a better choice. That means I wasted 40 bucks on that 2 train. The 2 train would have disappeared on its own. Yeah, the greens wouldn't have shown up as early, and because somebody would have to fund that 3 train. That would have been this guy, and that would have cost me a turn. But for 40 bucks, basically, I sped my development up by a turn, and maybe helped other people a whole lot in terms of track lays and stuff. We have kind of an interesting situation here. These guys puttering along, not doing too well. They're 2 trains. They really want to see the trains come out. Luckily for them, they have coal companies that they can help drive that with. Well, this guy doesn't really want to create a corporation. But these were really kind of booby prizes out of the whole list. I'm happier with this because I can convert it into shares that I want more. Nothing wrong with the Sudabon eventually, but it doesn't come out until the 4s come out. Now the 4s are coming out, which is one positive thing about them, is that is going to become a corporation fairly soon. Different corporations come out on the 4, 5, and 6 out of the state runs. Well, this is the first of them, which means there's something kind of not so terrible on its loser position, because at least it gets folded into something fairly soon. And in fact, the 3s are coming out pretty soon. You can see another 3, or the 4s are coming out pretty soon. You can see another 3 went here. We got 3 left. 1 more is going to go at the end of the round, which is soon. But when I come up to the 2, I look at it and I say, this is kind of interesting. Now, this guy just bought a 3 train, which, I could run and then run a 2 here, make good money. But this one is not in the best of locations, but really wants that 3 train. Now, this is the question. Will I be able to buy one with this if will I be able to buy another train with the money that I have left? I doubt it, and that's kind of the problem. 50. Part of the problem is this guy had to buy a lot of river player 2. Our Budapest player had to buy a lot of river connections, a couple of them. So that cost him some money. I don't think this was one, was it? No. The rivers are on the line without necessary bridging costs in some case. So I'd be looking at 75, 85, 90, 100 bucks total. Which means if I'm running a 2 train, I don't want to get 2 trains over here. I definitely don't. If I'm running a 2 train alone out of here, I get 90, that's 45. So I'd only be at 145. There's no way I can do that. I think I want to hold off on buying this 3 train over, much as it's really appealing to him, because he gets to run his 2 train here, and he gets to run his 2 train only to here. But I think I'd rather hit Budapest twice for another run before I try to shift trains, because I'm going to screw both my companies up to some extent if I don't buy it now, or if I buy it now. But there's some risk, which is that the 3 trains are kind of running down. And if people are starting corporations, which I don't know if I've seen any signs of it, but it could happen. That brings me on to my last one, which is the K&Ks. Train swapping cost me a little bit of income, maybe short term in terms of him getting as much, but as long as I didn't go to Pressburg, I went down here. It got me, I still had enough money to buy the 3 train. If I had paid the $20 for Pressburg, I'd be $10 short of buying the train. Don't want to be there. So, and unfortunately for me, these are the guys who go over when the 6s come out, which means these 2 3 trains, well, it means that it's not bad to have 2 3 trains on one company. But it does mean I've got to get something better somewhere, so that I have a train when that corporation actually starts, so it can actually run and doesn't fall back. Is it a terrible thing if it falls back? Well, it depends on what's going on. You don't want that to happen. But you notice this little hook I made instead of going straight in. That's because now I force, if the 3 wants to get their extra money there, they have to do the upgrade. They probably would do it anyway, because they're running a 2 train and would get a little extra money from it. But let's make them do it if they want it, you know? And it also drives me more towards the Budapest center and make sure that we're getting these connections here. I don't think that's too important. The big thing is, if he wants to make that connection, he has to lay the track for it, and give me something better. You know, it opens me up to this bit of silliness, which is running 2 2 trains, both to the same cities. That is legal in this one, I believe. I don't know if there's one where it's not. I seem to vaguely remember a game where you cannot make the endpoints the same in any given run. I don't remember which one that is. But that gives me the bell ringer at $160 for a run, and that's 80 and 80 going into the pockets, etc. So we should be, if we upgrade to a 3, we should be able to do that soon. Do we want to? I don't know, you know, probably. 3 3 trains on one corporation. That's, yeah, because it's essentially one corporation. That's beginning to get kind of risky, except that I have the capacity to hold 4 trains between those two little miners. And you'll see when the major corporations come in, they actually have larger capacity too. So it doesn't get them into too much trouble. You have a lot of flexibility in playing with things here. And at the end, is that the last one? Yeah. At the end of all that, we kill another 3 train. That's, I think there's 1 left. Which is maybe a disincentive, maybe an incentive for new corporations to build. Of course, it doesn't matter if they're coal corporations terribly, if they're set up to run as coal. But this one is set up already in Vienna. You know, that's pretty interesting, right? And it's actually not set up to use its coal run yet. It's going to have to hook that up as kind of its first move. All right. And actually, would that work? So I would be able to run, if I had a 2G, I'd be able to run to there. But my 1G would only be able to do this, which is garbage, right? So we might have some interesting options there. The 2Gs are available, though, and that corporation would have the money to upgrade to 1, which might be the choice. Upgrade to the 2G and run something through Vienna as well. I guess that puts me here. I'm going to send this up. I have no idea how long my videos take any longer because my camera won't tell me. But it feels like this has taken quite some time. And it's also shown sort of that beginning developmental side of the game. I'll probably step away quite a bit. I've been going into a lot of detail on everything. Oh, there was one more thing I wanted to look at. I wanted to look at the cash that everybody has generated, because this is the point where the early money flows in. You know, this is where early money becomes important. Basically, it really wasn't investable before this. So we got 370 here, 240, 255, 250. 275, 290, and 185. So we're seeing some serious disparity here in terms of what people have created with their money, with their early money. Now, how many of these people are going to be investing that money? Well, probably all of them are going to invest it. If corporations are going to start, it's time to start converting into that cash. And it's also important to make your decisions on these things. Do you want to hold them? You know, those corporations, even ones that start with a train and such, are probably not going to be making as much money as the Mountain Railway on that first turnover. So remember, it was just recently that we broke the miners making 25 each, right? Sure, we're way up there now, but some of them aren't. Some of these miners are making 20 or 25 bucks each. And to turn that into a 10% share of something, in this case the one was only making 50 bucks total. So I would be turning that into something that's making 5. Now, it's going to make better than 5, but maybe not on the first operating round. On the other hand, if I don't convert into that, I give up my opportunity to grab those shares. And that might actually be an opportunity to get more than 50%. Probably won't be, because probably what I'll be doing is, if I do convert these, and if I do desire to, I'll be converting them into them before I convert this. The reason being, once I convert this, I've committed myself. Have I committed myself with one share? Probably. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know which is more of a definite commitment. But you know, if I turn this in, I am absolutely committed. If I turn this in, I'm giving up 25 bucks around, but it may not be as major a commitment. Remember, once the 4s come out, these are guaranteed. They have to convert. So we don't have a lot more time on them no matter what. All right, let's send this up and we'll see where it goes after this. Definitely playing out a little differently from significantly differently from the last time I played it.